Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me for another Outer Limits episode. Today I will be talking about Season 1, Episode 8, The Human Factor, directed by Abner Biberman and starring Gary Merrill, Sally Kellerman, and Harry Guardino. And this is an interesting episode, The Human Factor. I would call it average overall. There's a couple of really good things about The Human Factor and a couple of not so great things about this episode, The Human Factor. So, to start with, the acting is pretty solid all the way around. The episode is very well paced and has a very interesting premise. It's always somewhat entertaining. Unfortunately, this episode has a few major problems, in my opinion. While the premise is interesting, it's not totally believable. You really have to kind of just go with it and suspend your disbelief at a few parts of the episode. And also, especially the second half of this episode, I'm not sure if it was because of the writing, the directing, or the editing, or maybe all three. The second half of this episode feels very disjointed in places and a couple times even a little confusing, even after going back and watching scenes a couple of times, in my opinion. So we start at an isolated military base and we're introduced to three characters, a Colonel Campbell, a Major Giles, and probably more importantly, a Major Brothers, who is one of our lead characters. And Brothers is unhappy because he wants to use some kind of device to destroy a creature that we'll find out more about what it represents as the episode goes on. He says it's coming to get everybody, but the other men stop him from using this very dangerous device. So he goes outside in the snow, and we get to see him have a hallucination of this creature, which is a pretty interesting setup for the episode. Then we're introduced to our other main character, Dr. Hamilton, and his assistant, a woman named Ingrid, who's helping him with his experiment. It turns out he has a device that can read another person's mind, but more than that, it can kind of switch the thoughts of both people so they know exactly what each other are thinking, if that makes sense. If this sounds like a dangerous idea that's not the best in a show like Outer Limits, that's because it's probably not the best idea, but it's an interesting concept. So this device is tested out. And it works in kind of an awkward, not totally convincing scene. But it turns out that we find out that Ingrid has feelings for the doctor, but she's kind of upset because she says that he's more worried about his work and doesn't share the same feelings. This will be important to the plot. The scene was okay overall, like I said, if a little bit strange. So at this point, we learn that Colonel Campbell is going to send Major Brothers to visit the doctor because obviously he thinks Brothers is unstable, talking about this creature that's going to destroy everybody. So they talk, and Brothers says the base is not safe. He explains his story, and he says, he wasn't allowed to finish his job and destroy this thing. So now he says it's going to destroy everybody. So the doctor says he believes him, but he could relate better to the situation if Brothers agrees to, have this mind control device put to use. So everything seems to be going well with this procedure until I think it's an earthquake or something happens and there's a malfunction. And this causes both men's minds to switch. So now, their bodies and minds are swapped basically, which is always an interesting concept. Like I said, unfortunately, it's only half believable here. So basically, at this point, Brothers is in the doctor's body. He uses this to get the doctor taken away because, of course, the guards, the men in charge, think that, they don't know who's who at this point. So at this point, Brothers comes up with this plan that he's going to eliminate everyone. And this kind of comes out of nowhere. This felt like a plot contrivance to me. I thought Brothers just wanted to eliminate the creature, since when does he want to take out everyone? But I guess if you go with it, it's okay. One of those strange plot elements. So at this time, Brothers visits the colonel as the doctor. He says he wants to examine this cartridge because it might help him with the case, which is really hard to believe and makes little sense, but it's agreed to basically. What Brothers really wants to do is cause trouble, of course. So we then learn the backstory, which was interesting, which caused Brothers to become the way he is and cause the hallucinations. It turns out one of his men was a goner under questionable situation, where it turns out that Brothers left him behind for what he thought was the better sake of all the rest of his men, the way it's explained. And it's a tough situation, and it caused him to become unstable. I thought this scene was fine. It added some backstory to Brothers. So At this point, Brothers goes to visit Ingrid, who's been absent from the episode for a while. He sees the creature again, which is really strange and didn't totally make sense. He also grabs a gun at this point, which will be significant to the end of the episode. But Ingrid, being pretty observant, is suspicious of this whole thing. And this is one of the parts of the episode you just have to go with. She pieces everything together rather quickly from some very convenient evidence that she just happens to find just like that, but I guess it worked. So Ingrid goes to talk to the real doctor still in Brother's body, and she instantly pretty much knows the truth in kind of a strange scene, but this one at least worked for me. At the same time, Brothers and Major Giles, who's along for the ride now at this point, are examining the device that Brothers wants to use to do everybody in. And this is offset kind of back and forth between that and Ingrid breaking the doctor out of his room. I thought these scenes were very sloppy and confusing in parts. It was kind of hard to tell what was going on at times, but it was also somewhat entertaining at the same time, so kind of a mixed bag there. So eventually, as I mentioned, Ingrid does break the doctor out. Eventually, Brothers, of course, goes to visit Ingrid. He wants to know where the doctor really is after he finds out he was broken out. This also kind of puts his plan in jeopardy at this point. So there's a short fight where the doctor kind of comes out of nowhere. The doctor hits Brothers, but the fight continues as the doctor's trying to hook them back up to the machine to undo all this mess. There's another fight, and it's definitely a sloppy fight. It's not the greatest TV fight of all time, even for the 60s. So both men are, of course, down. Eventually, there's a gunshot. Like I said, I had to watch this twice to totally figure out what was going on. So eventually, their minds are switched back. This surprisingly works, and the doctor's okay. Ingrid's relieved, and they have a nice touching moment, which did work for me, to be fair. There's pretty good chemistry between the two actors here. And at this point, Brothers is also a goner from the fight, but the doctor says he's free. So if you look at it a certain way, maybe an okay ending for Brothers as well, depending on your point of view. So like I said, overall, this episode's all over the place. It's somewhat effective, but didn't totally work for me. I thought the episode could have been better with a little bit better plotting, editing, and direction. But the acting is solid, and the episode is fast-paced and entertaining. And there's a few thought-provoking moments in this episode as well. So overall, for me, The Human Factor is an average episode, and I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. Big Outer Limits fans might want to check this one out once. For everyone else, it's not really an essential episode, in my opinion. So 2.5 out of 5 for The Human Factor, and as always, thank you very much for watching.